Here's Ukraine, here's Russia, right on the border. So this is a big national security threat for NATO to be set up right here in Ukraine. This is the equivalent to like the Chinese setting up here in Mexico City or Monterrey. If the Chinese set up in Monterrey, this would be a big problem. We would never let that fly. For you guys to understand, right, what's going on with this conflict, how the hell we got here, etc., you need to kind of get in the mind of Vladimir Putin. And to get into the mind of Vladimir Putin, right, you need to know that he's always been a very Russia first guy. He is a hardcore nationalist. And not only is he a nationalist, he remembers what the USSR was prior to the fall in 1991, right? So for him, he looks at Ukraine as like, these are our little brothers. These guys used to be a part of the Union in the early 90s, right? And he looks at Ukraine as a pawn being utilized by his enemies, aka NATO. And how they do it is they dangle this little carrot, which is called, oh, you want to be a part of the European Union? Oh yeah, you want to be able to be a part of us? Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and get you dangling this little carrot here so you guys can go ahead and join the European Union, right? And when they talk about this, you know, joining the European Union and NATO and all this other bullshit, what that basically means is this is going to be a threat, right, to your boy Putin, okay? Because NATO was basically created to combat Soviet influence. That's what it was made for, okay? After World War II, we had the Cold War, right? And some make the argument that the Cold War is gone. Some people make the argument that it's still going, whatever it may be. But what you guys need to know for the purpose of this conversation is Russia, Putin namely, has been combating the expansion of NATO for a very long time. Putin looks at it where they've been dangling the carrot of NATO, them being able to join NATO and the European Union, all this other crap. But the problem with Ukraine is that it's extremely poor and corrupt, okay? A lot of the oligarchs from Russia got kicked out of Russia and went and set up shop in Ukraine, okay? And they used to have a guy in Russia, I think it was Poroshenko, there we go. So Poroshenko, right, prior to your boy Zelensky, was kind of more neutral, but he was very pro-Russian as well. But he tried to do both sides, right? He tried to do both sides, not rock the boat enough, but he wasn't pro-NATO enough. So what happened? A coup happened, a color revolution happened in 2014 or 2013. And right here, it's called, I think it was called the Maidan Revolution. So here it is. Maidan Revolution between February 18th to the 23rd in 2014, right? So this went down and it led to the, Yanukovych. I'm sorry, Viktor Yanukovych. I'm thinking of Poroshenko before. Sorry, guys, I'm fucking very tired here. I had a long day. But basically what happened was, deadly clashes occurred between protesters and government forces in the capital of Kiev and culminated in the ousting of President Viktor Yanukovych, the return to the 2004 Constitution of Ukraine, and the outbreak of the 2014 Russo-Ukrainian War, which is going on right now, by the way. Right? People say that this war started in 2022. It actually started back in 2014, okay? With the Maidan Revolution, or some people call it the Revolution of Dignity, whatever it may be. But this was a coup, by the way. This was Western interference, okay? This was Western interference, this coup, all right? And this led to Crimea being taken over by the Russians, and this kind of was the beginning of the escalations, right? Because Russia was heavily sanctioned after this, by the way, okay? Because they took over Crimea after this. So what ended up happening was there's always been this fear of them joining NATO, right? Especially with people like Zelensky coming that are more pro-NATO, pro-West. So Putin, knowing this, said, yo, there's no way we're going to let these fucking guys set up shop in Ukraine. Because if you guys look on a map, right, here's Ukraine, right? Here's Russia, right on the border, okay? So this is a big national security threat for NATO to be set up right here in Ukraine. Big national security threat. This is the equivalent to like the Chinese setting up here in Mexico City or Monterrey. Bro, if the Chinese set up in Monterrey, this would be a big fucking problem for us. We would never let that fly, right? So when Americans get pissed off that your boy Putin, right? When people get pissed off that your boy Putin is, just protecting their national security, it is what it is. And there's been talks about Russia joining NATO for a while, but they're never going to let that happen. And the reason why they're never going to let that happen is because for them to let that shit happen, that would undermine the whole reason that NATO was created. NATO was created to basically fucking combat Russia. So I don't think they would want that for obvious reasons. But yeah, so you can see it's right here on their border. So that would create a lot of national security problems for them. And that's why we're in this conflict that we're in now. And that's why they invaded. Does that make sense, chat? I hope that makes sense. So this war started, number one, it didn't start in 2022, it started in 2014. That's number one. Number two, NATO is consistently expanding. Number three, this coup that I just talked to you guys about, the Maidan Revolution, led to the ousting of Viktor Yanukovych. And he was more pro-Russia. They got rid of him, put your boy Zelensky in, a Western puppet. it was inevitable that they would eventually expand NATO onto Russia's borders, he had to invade. That's simple, bro. That's simple. And that's where we are. That is where we are, chat, now with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And now we're in a position where it's been going on too long. Russia's taken on too much territory. We're about to go 4 years into this war, chat. 4 years into this goddamn war. So, yeah, 4 years. In February is going to be 4 years.